Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Elisa Ewan, and I'm the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations at Teachers College. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for a virtual cooking demo featuring alumna Stefanie Sacks. This program is brought to you by Alumni Relations as part of TC's Come Together Right Now virtually series. Although many of us are staying home right now, we are so grateful to all of our alumni experts who have stepped forward to offer digital programs that will continue to bring the TC community together to learn, share, and connect with one another. Today, Stefanie Sacks welcomes us into her kitchen virtually, where she will help us make the most of our pandemic pantries. Stefanie is nationally recognized culinary nutritionist, educator, speaker, consultant, and leading authority on eating to prevent and manage illnesses. For over 2 decades, she has helped transform the way people eat using hands-on experience to inspire, educate, and offer practical tools for food lifestyle changes. She has a Master of Science from Nutrition from Teachers College, Columbia University, is a certified nutrition specialist, certified dietitian nutritionist, and is a graduate from the Natural Gourmet Institute for Health and Culinary Arts. Stefanie has provided some recipes for today's cooking demos, as well as 2 additional recipes. You can download them in the handouts pane. Stefanie also welcomes all of your questions throughout the demo, so please feel free to send your questions in the questions pane throughout the demo today. And without further ado, here's Stefanie.
Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everybody, and welcome to my kitchen and to my imperfect home and my imperfect life. And I just want to start all of this by thanking you for tuning in and allowing me to do what I love, which is teach people how to nourish. And this, in turn, is very nourishing for me. So a couple of things just to start out with. I've got 2 boys. They may pop in and out. I also have 2 dogs that like to make a lot of noise. So hopefully they will decide to be quiet during this. This is super casual, so please feel free to ask questions that are recipe appropriate as I go. And then if you have other questions to ask, you can hold them to the end. But don't hesitate. I can definitively answer questions and talk as I'm teaching and cooking. Also, I just want to invite everybody to pause for a moment. And I want to recognize how challenging these times are for everybody. I actually spent 4 weeks being sick with COVID, so my heart goes out to anybody and everybody who is up against dealing with this virus. It had its challenges for sure, but I'm very, very fortunate to be on the other side. Also, I just want to take a moment for everyone to just forgive themselves for what they can't do right now. There's so many things that we just can't do right now, and we can't get the food that we want. We can't exercise in the way that we want. We can't connect with people in the way that we want. And I think one of the most valuable lessons I learn every day is just how to be forgiving. So for myself. And so I'm asking you all to forgive yourself, and let's honor what we all can do and accept what we can't without judgment. So without further ado, I want to address the fact that everybody sent in such fabulous items for me to tackle during this demo and dialogue, and some great questions. I'm not going to get to every one. I've tried to encompass several items in each of the 2 recipes. The first one is going to be something called a sweet potato hash. I know there are questions about sweet potatoes, about onions, about using broth. And this is a super simple recipe. If you don't have sweet potatoes, you can use white potatoes. If you don't have onions, you can use leeks like this, and I'll show you how to cut. And so I'm going to go through that recipe first. And then the second recipe is going to be a shrimp and vegetable brown rice. There are questions about shrimp. There are questions about chicken and scallops, and all of that stuff can be used instead of the shrimp. You'll just follow the recipe in accordance with what I say, and then you can swap it out. So we'll go over all that stuff in detail. Now, every recipe that I'm doing is gluten-free, is dairy-free. In fact, they are also low FODMAP outside of the peas. I know some people had questions about that for irritable bowel syndrome. So if you also have very specific questions, I know Elisa will give you all my website, and feel free to email me. I'm so happy to be available. So I'm gonna wash my hands, and then we'll jump on the sweet potato hash. So this is a very strange thing for me to be doing this without any interaction. So bear with me as I get used to this platform. So I'm just gonna use some olive oil here, and I'm gonna turn my flame on a medium, and I'll pour the oil in. You have the exact recipe with all of the measurements. So I don't ever cook according to recipe, not even my own. I don't like to measure. So, and I'm a terrible baker as a result. But here are some chopped up onions, and I added some garlic. So when you get the recipe, you'll see that garlic is not in it, but you can add the garlic. And I'm gonna show you here first. So this is an onion that I used, and you can use red onion, you can use white onion, you can use yellow onion. You don't have to follow everything to a T. You can use a leek, like I had said, or scallions. And so this here is a half of an onion. First, I'm going to show you how to peel an onion very easily. And all you're going to do is cut off the ends ever so slightly, like so, and run your knife down the side like that, and then just peel the skin off. Sometimes we spend a lot of time in a kitchen doing things that have very quick shortcut solutions. So there we have the peeled onion, and here's half of an onion, and I'm just making sure you guys can see. So I'm having my fingers on the side, and I'm actually running the knife down, leaving the skin intact over here at this end. Okay, and it makes cutting or dicing much easier. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go like so and cut the knife. Now, cut the onion. And then I'll flip it over just like that, and I'll finish it off. Okay, so I'm going to put these onions in here. And while this is going, I'm going to mix around here like so. I have here some diced sweet potato. I'm going to show you how to do it. So this is one sweet potato diced. Here's a second sweet potato. They've been washed already. I leave the skin on. The skin has a ton of nutrition. These, particularly if it's organic, you want to keep the skin on. And these are organic. So I was able to get my hands, or my husband was able to get his hands on them. And so here I cut the ends off the potato, and I'm going to cut it in half like so. And then I'm going to cut it down. You want it on a flat surface when you cut. So I'm going to cut it into strips from there. Make sure your knives are sharp if you can. You know, a dull knife is a dangerous knife. So if you have the ability to sharpen them, that would be great. If not, just be really cautious. And then you can just run the knife down like this. And you're just cutting thin pieces of the potato, just like so. And I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any questions at this point. So another way to do the potato is to set it on a flat surface and cut down like that so you can have smaller pieces. So I have two pieces like this. And then just do what I did before, which is cutting it down into strips and then going like so.
Stephanie, we have someone who wants to know what kind of skillet you're using right now.
So that's a cast iron skillet. That is my go-to for almost everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And so now I've got the onions that are now translucent, if everyone can see. It smells beautiful. When you're cooking, stop and just take a whiff of what's going on. And then I'm going to throw these in, just like so.
And then Stephanie, if you don't have a cast iron, can you use any kind of skillet, or does it need to be like a specific non-stick?
You can use any kind. If you are using non-stick, make sure that you're using a wooden or like a silicone spoon or device to move the food around. You do not want to scratch your non-stick. Okay, so, you know, one thing I did forget to bring out, which I will, I think I have some fresh herb in my fridge, which I'll go to in a second. Now this is a leek. You can get creative and do onion and leek. My kids are just walking into the house. So what you're gonna do with the leek here is you're gonna cut this green off like so, and you can hold this aside for some stock. And then you're gonna cut it down in the half. And oftentimes the leeks are dirty inside. This happens to be very clean. You can see, but nonetheless, I'm gonna give it a quick rinse. And then I'll just slice my leek because it gives it a beautiful flavor if you do have a leek or a scallion. I guess my message is be really flexible, guys. You know, recipes are just maps. They're really just maps. And here we go.
Stephanie, since you're using a cast iron right now, do you have any fun advice or tips on how to best maintain a cast iron skillet?
Well, the one thing about a cast iron skillet is you don't want to scrub it clean. Okay, you really want to just, what I do with this, you make sure you season it. And when you get a cast iron skillet, they'll have instructions on how to season it, which is typically just rubbing it with oil and then heating it. And then when you're done using it, you really just want to wipe it out versus washing it all the time. I do it sometimes with a little soapy warm water, depending on what any of us have decided to cook in it at the moment. Because sometimes things do get stuck, but I try to be as gentle with it as possible.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Someone was wondering if they could substitute red potatoes instead of sweet potatoes.
Yes, absolutely, you can substitute red potatoes. You can do any kind of potato in this dish. It's really like just making a hash brown. So, you know, each potato has a different starch content and sometimes act and react differently. Sometimes the red potatoes, you'll find they stick together a bit, but just put a little extra oil in there. So then this is just some kosher salt that I'm going to throw in here. And as far as salt is concerned, always know you can never take out, you can always add in. So err on the side of less is more when you start out. And you just want to also honor those people in your family who have special dietary needs and even, you know, let them add it in, or they don't have to add it in and then you can add more. Let me just check in my refrigerator. I think I have some fresh herb. Okay, so here's some cilantro. It doesn't look that great, but I'm gonna use what I can on it, just by trimming it around. And then unfortunately, the rest of it has to go into the garbage or into a compost, which right now I do not have, unfortunately. So there you go, and that's in. And then this dish is done. Super simple. You can freeze this. I know there were a lot of questions about making dishes and freezing them. So once this is done, you can freeze it. This is where I also will take vegetable broth or water. I may have forgotten this on the recipe. We talked about imperfection at the beginning. I'm clearly imperfect, although hypervigilant with this stuff. But anyway, just add, when you see the recipe, just notate you can add water or some vegetable broth if you wish, because what that does is it just helps the potatoes cook down a little bit more. And
Okay, so we had a question about salt. So what's the big deal between kosher salt, sea salt, Himalayan pink salt, regular salt? What's the difference, and is there one better than the other?
No, I mean, I always say to people, salt is salt is salt. I mean, some may have minute, mineral content differences. Of course, like I have like a black volcanic salt. I have a Celtic sea salt. I have kosher salt, Maladon salt. And to be honest with you, my favorite salt is just straight up kosher salt. That does not have an anti-caking agent. What's great about using a salt that has bigger flakes is that you're likely to use a lot less salt than you are if you're using, the tight granulated iodized salt. So I find that it tends to support using less sodium when you use a flakier salt.
Thank you. So we have someone who asked what kind of oil you're currently using, and then what are other types of oils you recommend?
So right now, I'm just using extra virgin olive oil that we picked up a cold process. So in terms of oils right now, I would say everybody, whatever you can get your hands on, use. I know that oil's been hard to come by for our family. So I'm using olive oil. I'm using whatever vegetable oils I can find. In a non-COVID situation, I typically stick with extra virgin olive oil, first cold pressed, which will have the highest nutrient content. Sometimes I'll even use a light olive oil, not for nutrition, but for higher heat cooking. I use coconut oil as well, sesame oil, peanut oil. So I really vary it. And you want an oil that can withstand a higher heating temperature. I also use ghee, which is clarified butter. So what I'm doing now, I'm going to move this over to the other room. You may not be able to see it. I'm going to start on this. So bear with me. Okay. Okay, so now guys, you were asking me a question, I think, when I lost you.
I was asking what protein you would recommend in the potato hash.
Right. So I wouldn't necessarily put a protein in the hash. What I would do is if you have some chicken, or I know someone was asking if they, about sausage, just pan fry, saute some chicken or some sausage, or if you have some frozen seafood, and serve it with the hash. I wouldn't necessarily cook it in with the potatoes. Although eggs could probably be pretty good in there, come to think of it. Okay, so I'm going to be jumping over here to just mix this a little as it's cooking, and I may add some more broth depending on where we go. So now what we're going to do here is I use this long grain white rice that we were able to get our hands on, and I cooked some rice here. So I know the recipe says brown rice. I will openly admit that I prefer white rice to brown rice in terms of its flavor, its texture. I enjoy brown rice, but white is just my favorite. And so I veer over there oftentimes. But you can make this deliciously with brown rice. It's wonderful with brown rice. I just didn't have any in my house right now. So 1 cup of rice to 1.5 cups of water. That's white rice. If it's brown rice, it's 1 cup of brown rice to 2 cups of water. And so, so what I'm going to do here is I'm using peanut oil, which I had. You could use olive, if or some vegetable oil. And so I'm going to get that in. Usually it's hot wok cold oil, but I didn't think of that, so sorry about that. I was able to get some frozen shrimp that we've had in the freezer for the past month or so. We stocked up actually before COVID. So this is what I'm working with. You can use frozen scallops. I know that someone was asking about frozen scallops. You can also use chicken and dice the chicken really small, and I'll get more into that in a moment. So I'm heating up the oil here. And then what I'm going to do is the shrimp is right here. And what I've done is I've cut it into tiny pieces. So here are two shrimp that have been left over, right like that. And all I'm gonna do is just take them and cut them down like that. And I didn't clean my knife, which is okay. It's just some fresh herb. So I'm gonna take the shrimp and I'm gonna toss the shrimp in because you wanna cook your protein first. And I would recommend dicing up the chicken if you're gonna use chicken as well. Give it a good rinse, so clean with some water and some lemon and a little bit of salt prior to using it. And now what I'm going to do is, someone was asking about frozen peas. This is a great recipe to put peas in. So we've had a bunch of frozen peas. Although these are not FODMAP, they're actually high FODMAP. So if you want to make this recipe without that concern, eliminate these. So I'm going to throw some peas in, super easy. And then I've taken some zucchini right here as I cut it in half. And all you can do here is just put the strips down like we did the potato. And you're going to run it down like so.
Stefanie, while you're chopping up your zucchini, we had someone who wanted to know if you had any advice on the best way to prolong the life of fresh herbs.
Yes, I do. I have a lot of advice on that. So what I would do in terms of how I prolong the life of fresh herbs is I clean them and then I put them in, I wrap them in cold, wet paper towel. And then what I do is I put that into, a Ziploc bag and I get all the air out of that bag. And then I put that in my refrigerator. Okay, so you can kind of see how beautiful that is. It's cooking. And what I also did too, we've gotten a lot of broccoli and I hate wasting broccoli. So what I did was I cut up some broccoli stems, which is, they're packed with nutrition. So I'm gonna cut the gut end off of this and you literally can just run down like so and you've got your broccoli stems. And you can just cut them into little pieces. I like to use sort of the underdog parts of the vegetables. You can throw them in as well. And again, this dish can be frozen. Then here are some scallions that I'm gonna chop up. These are starting to look a little wonky, so I cleaned them up. And that's one thing I would urge everybody to do is if something looks a little wonky right now, just spend a little time cleaning it. We have the time to do it. Don't just toss it away. We want to be really mindful of not wasting. So important. We've got a lot of people who are food insecure right now. The numbers are climbing daily, and I don't know, all of us doing our part is so important. And understanding that we all have different starting points, we all have different access points, and what we do at home can influence what's going on outside. So
Stefanie, in that kind of same vein, we have someone who was asking what fresh vegetables do you think is best to stock up on? Meaning what would last long enough to keep during these times since we can't always go to the grocery store every day?
Great question. So I'm just mixing everything, guys. So bear with me 1 second and I'll get to that question. So I'll just tell you what we're stocking up on, because I think that would be really helpful. And it's potatoes, onion, garlic, staples. Green vegetables, so things that have like broccoli or broccoli rabe or kale, things that are not as delicate that can withstand longer. How we store it is actually going to make a difference too. So the way you would store the herbs that I had said before, that's a good way to think about storing your vegetables in general. Cauliflower is great. The zucchinis and the squashes can go bad. The summer zucchini squash can go bad pretty quickly. Even peppers can go bad pretty quickly. So I would tend to go, more towards different root vegetables like carrots and beets if you like beets, or rutabaga or celeriac. Go to those items that maybe you don't normally go to. And a little tip is that a rutabaga or a turnip or celery root, they all behave like a potato, so you can get creative. So so now, guys, let me just get back to this. So here we've got our vegetables that are nicely cooked. We've got our shrimp that's cooked. The smell is heavenly. And now what I'm going to do is take some of my rice that I've cooked. I actually made extra rice because I've got a 14-and-a-half-year-old and 11-and-a-half-year-old boy that I've got to feed, as well as my husband. So I'm cooking more in quantity. And here we go. So I'm going to mix this up.
And Stephanie, can you use old rice with this recipe, or does it need to be fresh rice?
You can 100% use old rice. This is a great dish to repurpose. I love repurposed food. So, rice, let's say we make rice for dinner one night and have leftover, we throw it into a dish like this. And so now, outside of seasoning, this dish is really done. So I'm going to add, this is some soy sauce. We use the Sanjay gluten-free. I know that Keep 'em In, which is a much more readily available brand, has a gluten-free as well for those people who are gluten-free. They also have a low sodium. So I eye it and I'll toss it in. And if you don't have soy sauce, which some people may not, some may have something called Bragg, so you can use Bragg's. If you don't have that, you can just use salt, a little bit of salt, and season it with that, and don't feel like, you're missing out on too much. So here we've got our rice, and then what I do is I'll turn it off, and then I have toasted sesame oil in my home, which is a dark, dark sesame oil. This is not an oil that you heat through a flame. It's an oil that's used to just flavor. So I'll put some of this on at the end. If you don't have it, that's fine too. If you have sesame seeds, you can put sesame seeds in here. And again, you can be super flexible with your vegetables. But there you have it. So you've got two dishes now. Both can be frozen. Both are pretty easy to make. And both are highly, highly nutritious. So you've got, there you go. And now your sweet potatoes are done as well. Voila. And a good thing to do too is to really enlist, if you've got kids, enlist your kids to help out. That's so important. And I think even kids who have food aversions, I know there was a notation by someone whose child has food aversions for a variety of reasons. And I think it's really important, if you can, to engage everyone in your house in some kind of nourishment related task, whether it's helping to put groceries away, helping to organize a pantry or refrigerator, chopping, even just bringing ingredients to the table. I had to say to both my boys, you're out of the kitchen, by 12:30 today to prep for this, because they've been doing so much cooking and just experimenting. So that would be my advice to everybody. And now I'm happy to do a Q&A. Actually, I'm going to taste this to see where the flavors are, and then I'll readjust the flavors if needed. So let me do that. Let me see if my kids may want to come in and taste too.
Great. Well, while you're taste testing, we have a lot of other people I didn't get a chance to read off their questions, so I'll read them off, but take your time taste testing as well. So we had a couple of people ask about using frozen veggies in your dish. Do you need to thaw them out, or do you have any advice on how to make sure that if you're using frozen veggies, they're not going to be this mushy pile of mess at the end?
Yeah, so I used the frozen peas in here, guys, and they stayed intact. They were beautiful. And it's funny, I had some questions about that myself, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, are they going to get all mushy? But My advice is to not thaw them out. You keep them frozen, which is what I did, and then just toss it in frozen. I know there were some questions about cauliflower, so frozen cauliflower, and that's why I included that recipe for cauliflower cheese soup, because a great way to use the cauliflower is to make a soup and to flavor it. But you can take frozen vegetables and saute them. You know, they'll defrost as they're cooking.
Great. So we had a couple of questions talking about now that we have to kind of stockpile on the vegetables that we're purchasing. Do you have like a rule of thumb on if a vegetable is a little moldy, can we cut that away and then use the rest of it? Do you have a rule of thumb on how to avoid waste if things are starting to bruise, if things are slimy, and things like that?
So I think we have to come up with strategies for our, for storing food. Number one is, and I think everybody needs to understand this, and I've looked into this quite a bit, we're really not going to run out of food. Okay, so this idea of stockpiling, do it because you're keeping your family safe and you're not going to the grocery store as often. Don't do it because you're coming from a place of fear, saying, I've got to get all that I can, because you're going to end up, living in fear is not healthy, number one, and number two, stockpiling is not healthy for anybody. And then you're going to end up wasting. So in terms of when you do have stuff, you'll have a gauge on how quickly you're going to go through things, depending on your family size, depending on how much you're cooking. But like I said, with the herbs, your best bet is to, like with your greens in particular, clean them, and then, put them in a bag with like a damp paper towel and get all the air out of the bag. And I don't have anything stored in this refrigerator like that. But get everything out of the bag, all the air out of the bag. That's important. So what that's doing is preventing the oxidation, which is what causes the rot. And put that in your fridge. With vegetables like peppers, a great thing to do is to cut them up and put them in a bath of cold water and leave it in a container in your fridge. And make sure you change your water every other day, though, because they can get slimy if you don't. So carrots, celery, but usually carrots keep quite well. Celery does, potato, onions, all of the tougher vegetables that I was talking about. I think where we run into issues are with, the fresh herbs and the cucumbers and the leafy greens. So the more delicate. So just think about cleaning and storing instead of shoving everything in.
No, thank you for that. That's really helpful. So we had a viewer who, when you were making the fried rice, they saw you cutting up the broccoli and you were using the stems. Do you not need to peel the broccoli stems before adding it to your dish?
No, not at all. Just get sometimes the very bottom of the stem is worn and brown. So you just cut that off. And then you can cut the broccoli stems up into smaller pieces and they're just fine. They're delicious. They're really, really good. Yeah. So use as much as you can. I mean, you saw me unfortunately have to throw away, some cilantro, and, because I had been sick for a month, I didn't really have much energy to mind my vegetables in the way that I normally do. So that was bought a few weeks ago, and it just was, shoved in the back of the vegetable bin, and got a little slimy. So I was kind of working my way around it.
Okay.
Do you want to
come and taste? Someone want to come in?
I'm trying to get my older son to come and taste the food. Okay, here, just a quick taste. This is my son Jack.
Is it?
And
No, is it?
Hi, Jack.
This is, come and say hi to everybody.
Hi.
This is vegetable fried rice with shrimp.
Sweet potato?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't like sweet potatoes, so he's the sweet potato.
I like everything but sweet potato.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still pretty good. It's hard for kids to get their vegetables in, so if you don't eat all the other vegetables, that's still good. So we had a couple of questions on substitutions for fried rice, Stephanie.
Yeah.
The first one was, can you make this fried rice with either brown rice or cauliflower rice?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. With the cauliflower rice, the thing that I would just caution, sorry about that noise. The thing that I would just caution is that cauliflower holds a ton of water. So what I would do is, number one, it depends if your cauliflower is really, really finely cut. I give it kind of a quick saute on its own to get some of the water out and then put it in.
Okay. The next question is, if we want to make a vegetarian version of this fried rice dish, can we use beans? And if we do, what beans would you suggest?
I actually would use tofu or tempeh, to be honest with you. I think that that would go really nice with it. And we've done that before. So using the tofu or the tempeh is great. I haven't done it with like a black bean or a white bean or a pinto bean. You can, but that wouldn't be my first go-to. It would be more tofu or tempeh.
So we have someone who, I mean, while you've been cooking, we've had a lot of people just comment and they're just like, I wish we could have smell involved in this webinar because they're very jealous right now. We have someone who wants to know if you'll do deliveries to Rhode Island.
I wish. God, I wish. I'd like to have everybody to come over and I'd cook for them, you know? But no, you know, I wish I did. I didn't go into food service, unfortunately. So I went into education.
So we've talked about a little bit now about what vegetables we should buy that have a nice long lifespan. And we also have a question right now about what's the best way to clean these fresh fruits and vegetables after we're back from the grocery stores. I mean, there's a lot of information going around, and so we want to make sure that what we're using is to clean our vegetables and our fruits is the right way.
So, you know, you know, and I did a webinar last week where this question came up. And I think what we just have to do right now is in terms of how we approach our fruits and vegetables, how would you normally clean them? So maybe what would happen is when you get home, you just put everything away, and then you clean it as you use it. Instead, just clean it before you put it away. I know that different colleagues of mine, some are doing, you know, big bowls with water and a little bit of vinegar, and then they're rinsing everything out. I'm just running it under water, you know, but I think in all honesty, because I've lived through COVID, my approach perhaps is a little different because my family has experienced it. So, you know, in the end, it's just important. You know, sometimes you can use a vegetable brush. That's my younger son, Hunter. Want to say hi?
Hi, Hunter.
You can use a vegetable brush. That's great. You can peel some things, but I think a great tactic is to do what would you know, ask yourself what do you normally do, and just do it when you get home versus later, if that makes sense. The other thing too, what we do with our groceries is my husband's been the one who's been doing the shopping, and he puts all the bags out on the deck. Normally we use reusable bags, but we're not right now. We're just using the paper bags at the grocery store. And then he comes home, he brings them out of the car, and then we just take the food out and bring it into the house. So that's what we do from there. We take it out of the packaging and we'll bring it.
No, thank you. So we've been lucky enough to see both of your boys in the background, and you alluded that they've also been cooking lately. And so someone wants to know if your family has some of their favorite recipes that y'all have eaten and cooked during this quarantine. Do you try to cook something different every day for each meal? They're just finding it, a lot of people kind of talked about menu planning and kind of how difficult that's been with everything that's going on.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. I think that, and I don't take for granted for one moment the ability that I have, and that this is just my nature. So for me, it's nothing. but I've devoted my life to education so I can teach people how to do it and how to approach it differently. And my book actually has 50 recipes in it that are some of our favorite. And we've been making at home. This vegetable fried rice is one of them. The cowgirl chili that I have the recipe, gave you the recipe for. The cheesy cauliflower soup, we've done that a few times. There's a baked chicken wings, because you can find a lot of chicken wings in the grocery store right now. So we've been doing chicken wings. We've been doing a lot of wing night. And I have a recipe in my book for the wings as well. I did a huge pot of turkey meatballs that we ate over 2 days. And I'm not, believe me, I am not in this apron cooking every single day. You know, I didn't cook yesterday. I was like, guys, it's a leftover day. I don't care if you have, you know, a grilled cheese sandwich. Like, that's the way it's going to be right now. And that's what I was talking about at the beginning, was forgiving yourself. You know, so many of us have had to step into roles, not only as parents, but as teachers, you know, trying to work from home or dealing with the stress of losing a job. You know, camp counselors for kids who are like, I'm done with my schoolwork, now what? And so we really have to forgive ourselves. And, you know, if there's a night that I need to say, later guys, I'm done, I do that. And, you know, I'm lucky in that my kids cook a lot. So they'll make their own lunches, or maybe sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and make a big pot of soup, and everybody will have their share. So, you know, I think that the way I would very, very succinctly answer that question is all the recipes that we cook at home all the time are in my book.
Great. And thank you for kind of talking about menu planning. We had a viewer that was just kind of talking about every day is like a new episode of Chopped for her, just finding what ingredients she has and try to make it all blend together. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and you know what? This is the thing, is that you could just do pasta one night. You know, you don't have to puzzle piece ingredients together every night, like I'm here, to make something fantastic. Do pasta and peas with a little bit of shredded cheese if you have cheese at home, or do it with, you know, some sauteed chicken. Make it super simple, super, super simple. And you don't have to be shorter to cook. That's the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know a lot of people are saying that they feel like short order cooks.
No, that's great advice. So someone was asking, what are your recommended condiments to have in your pantry to create versatile dishes?
Right, that's great. That's a great question. So if we're, you know, putting the fresh herbs aside, you know, herbs that are safe to get right now, or safer to get, let's say, than a parsley or a cilantro or a dill, are like the rosemaries, the thymes, the oreganos, the things that are a little woodier because they last longer. Okay. If you're going to bring home a basil, let's say, make a pesto right away. You know, I have a recipe for pesto in the book, but you can also Google recipes for pesto. So I would make a pesto pretty quickly and then freeze it or put it in the fridge. It will last a while. But for me, you know, I always have, you know, the way that I look at spices and dry herbs are sort of in cuisine. So I have a lot of Indian spices. So I have cardamom, cloves, I have spicy pepper, I've got cumin, coriander, which is crossover into some Mexican food as well, which again will be the cumin, the coriander, and then I've got different peppers and different salts, and I've got, you know, cinnamon, of course, and sesame seeds and things like that, if that makes sense. Oregano, basil, all dry. And then my little guy loves garlic, granulated garlic. I have so much fresh garlic. I don't know why he loves it, but, you know, and onion powder he loves. I have those too. And I actually ordered some stuff online. So, you know, some of the things that are harder to find, I mean, it may take 2 weeks to get to me, but it still does.
So now that a lot of us are kind of at home, we've noticed that we're snacking more than usual. We're definitely having snacks in between meals, desserts after meals, and things like that. Do you have any healthy snacks that you recommend? Any treats that your family likes to do? A lot of people I know are baking right now because they have the time to do it, but they're like flour's getting harder to find, yeast is getting hard to find. So, what do you recommend?
So, yeah, snacking is a big conundrum for a lot of people, and not just snacking, but emotional eating. So what I often say is just make sure you have cut vegetables in the house, and put them in the water like I had suggested, keep them in the freezer. There were some questions about beans. You can make a bean dip and have a bean dip around and then dip the bean, the vegetables in the bean dip. I'm gonna run to my refrigerator for 1 second. So like another thing that, because really what it is it's a mouthfeel that we're all looking for. And it's very common. And so I'm keeping like a lot of beverages. So I'm making an iced tea. This is like a fresh mint tea that we do, a sun tea. I have that in the fridge. And sometimes it just feels better than drinking water. I'm kind of bored of water all the time. And one of my vices is an unsweetened green tea at Starbucks, go figure. And I can't get that anymore. So this satisfies that for me. This is actually a homemade chai that we had made. And so I'll do like an iced chai with a little bit of oat milk, or you can do it with cow's milk, or any other alternative milk that you want. And making a chai is super easy, guys. If you just go into your spice cabinet, and a lot of people, you may have really old spices, but honestly, don't worry about that right now. And just put, if you have black tea, just put in a pot of hot water, black tea bags and some cardamom pods and some cloves. And if you have some ginger, throw it in. Some people pick up ginger during a time like this because it's, anti-inflammatory, it's medicinal. So if you have that, you can put black peppercorns in and cinnamon, and it's a homemade chai. And then just put some honey in it and then strain all the stuff out, and then you're left with a beverage here. So get creative with beverages. Throw a little juice and some seltzer, or squeeze an orange and some seltzer if you have seltzer, you have a seltzer machine. Look to the beverages. And I don't mean like sugar water beverages. I mean, beverages that have some, some flavor and some pizzazz to them.
So thank you for talking about beverages and showing us your sun tea and your chai tea. And I know that you kind of went through about how you made the chai tea, but we have a bunch of people now asking how you made your sun tea and what that recipe is. They're all like, it looks really good.
Yeah, so guys, the sun tea is so easy. Literally take tea bags, like 4 tea bags, and put them in a pitcher or whatever it is you may have with some water. And if you live in a rural community and you have an outdoor space, just put it outside, put a covering on it and put it outside, and the sun will steep your tea for you. And that's it. That's it. Done. If you do not live in a community where you're in an outdoor space, instead of using the sun, what you can do is just heat a little bit of water. And what I urge you to do is, when you're making it, you have to put your tea bags in. So you'll see my tea bags are still in here. And put your tea bags in and put a metal spoon in the canister like this, in the glass canister if you're using glass, and then put your hot water in with it that way, because the metal will absorb the heat and it will prevent the glass from cracking. And then let that steep so the tea gets absorbed into the water, and then just add cold water on top of that. And so that's sort of an indoor version of sun tea.
Oh, I did not know about the metal spoon. That's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
I've made the mistake. Sometimes I get a little like I'm doing so much in the kitchen, I forgot to do it, and my entire jar just
oh
fracked.
my no.
Yeah.
So helpful tip, make sure you have a metal spoon and a
Yes.
glass container. Um, so you mentioned earlier about your chai tea. Can you just repeat those ingredients for us?
Yeah. So it's funny. It's not a recipe I actually have written yet. So, but I'll tell you how I do it. So I am. I guess we have this at home, which is just a Prince Wales black tea. So I'll take a big pot, kind of like this size. So this is I don't even know what size. I think it 4-quart pot. And I'll fill it, barring 1 inch. I'll fill it with water. And then I'm going to just pull out all of my spices here, some of my Indian spices, so you can see. And I'll put 4 tea bags in. So you can use any black tea. You'll put 4 tea bags in. And I'm going to just clear this up so you guys can see more clearly. And so these are, someone had given me this as a gift, and these are some of my Indian spices here. So, oh, it smells so delicious.
I'm
So,
very jealous. It does. It looks
cardamom
amazing.
pods, and you guys see those? Those are cardamom pods. So I'll put 8 cardamom pods in. They're very, very powerful. So, 8 to 10 cardamom pods. This is black pepper pods. So I'll put about, 8 of those in. Whole cloves. I'll put about, 8 of those in. I guess 8 across the board, 8 to 10 across the board. And then this is, I'll put like 2 cinnamon sticks. These are actually broken cinnamon sticks, but I'll use big, big cinnamon sticks, like 2 of those. And I'll put that in. And then, if you do have ginger in the house, I'll show you ginger and have to slice it. So this is organic ginger, so I'll use the skin like that. And then all I do is I'm going to just slice it, just like so. So I'll put that just like that in the pot. And then I'll let it, cook and come to a boil for about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And then I'll let it sit for a little bit. And then I take a strainer, like a fine mesh strainer like this, and I'll transfer from one pot to another pot. So I'll pour the liquid through into another pot, and then I'll discard what's in here. And then I just add honey to taste, and then put it in the refrigerator.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and the thing about that is it's so rich. It's very satisfying.
Now we all can make chai tea at home. I love it.
Yeah.
So we have someone who was wondering if you have members in your family who have a nut allergy, what nutritional foods do you recommend?
If someone has a nut allergy,
Mm-hmm.
oh God, I mean, there are loads of things without nuts or seeds, depending if it's a tree nut, if it's a legume allergy. So I think in general, you just, I would imagine that if you have a family member with a nut allergy, you have a nut-free home. In which case you do have to be cautious purchasing things that are, manufactured in facilities that also process nuts, because then it can trace them out. So you have to look at the fine print, but really stick with the fresh fruits and vegetables, animal foods that you like. I could get into a whole dialogue about how to source animal foods, but right now it's just not worth it. At another point I will, because access to the best versions of animal foods are hard to come by right now. So I don't know if there was more of a specific question related to nuts, but I think it's sticking more with your whole fresh foods, you're better off.
So we have another question. How do we convince a picky eater in the family to eat what everyone else is eating instead of trying to make a different dish for every single member of family? Because we all know that's just impossible.
Yeah. So whenever I get a picky eating question, I always offer this. When I went to TC, uh, we had a class where we spent a lot of time on picky eating. And I honestly can say that after my second child was born, everything that I learned about picky eating in graduate school went out the window. I had a picky eater. And so for me, what I really was tasked with was understanding why he's a picky eater. And he was born with oromotor issues. He was born tongue-tied. He was born with a condition called geographical tongue. And so there were real things anatomically that were making him, reject food. It was a long, arduous first 2 to 3 years. And what I always urge parents and family members to do is, because sometimes what we'll do is we'll say, oh, he's just a picky eater. And that can be very dismissive. Try to understand why you're a picky eater. My younger son, his palate is very different than everyone else's in the family. It just is, and I'm not going to change that. But I also don't cater to him. So we have a menu of things that I know he likes, and I'll prepare food, and there's always an option that I know he'll eat. But if he's in one of his moods and he's like, well, I'm not eating that, I'm like, well, then you're not eating. And that's that. And as a dear colleague of mine says, Dr. Stephen Cowan, who's one of the most miraculous developmental pediatricians, he says, the funny thing is that they're never going to starve. They're not going to starve.
Mm-hmm.
So if they go a day without eating, that's fine. And I think what happens is, as parents, you become anxietous that your kid's not going to eat, but in the end, they're fine. I would say back off and do one item during each meal that he or she will eat. If they choose not to, then they don't eat. And if they were planning on having a delicious dessert, too bad. You're the boss, they're not. And that's the way to deal with it. And I had to do that with my son, and not easy, but all the better for it.
Well, Stefanie, I just noticed what time it is. I feel like this hour just kind of flew by very quickly. But I want to first just thank you so much for welcoming us into your kitchen and showing us how we can make the most of our pandemic pantry. TC will be planning more digital events in the future, so please stay tuned to emails from Teachers College, Alumni Relations, and our social media channels. You will be receiving a link to this video recording, as well as the 2 recipes we cooked today and 2 additional recipes in a follow-up email. The video will also be available on our website. We hope you can join us for our next event, which is a virtual fireside chat with President Thomas Bailey on Friday, April 24th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I know we didn't get to go through all of our questions, but in our follow-up email that will be sent out to everyone, Stefanie's website will be there, and you can contact her directly with any questions we didn't get to, or if you have any other questions that you want to reach out to her about. But Stefanie, thank you again for sharing your expertise with us. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us and taking time out of your day to do that. And please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I mean that. I will get back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.